Yo, good morning, YouTube. We got a very cool video today. I'm looking at this $140 billion train race they're trying to do in America to build the first rail lines to get you to Los Angeles to like from South Carolina or some shit, like across the United States in 3 hours, some crazy time. It's really crazy. It's a company called Brightline. But with that being said, let's get into the video. I stream every day on Twitch at that guy Malachi. Search up looking for that rocket power. You'll find me that way too. All right, let's get into the video.
A few years' time, and it might actually work. If that weren't surprising enough, the whole project got its start in Orlando, Florida.
Really, Orlando, Florida?
This is the story of America's struggle to get high-speed rail up and running, and why this latest idea might just be its best chance yet.
I honestly believe they should build maglev systems throughout the United States. That way we could have, really get that efficient travel across the United States because the infrastructure in the United States sucks.
If you were to plan a trip between
public travel in the
cities
United States
US,
is terrible.
Most Americans would tell you that
there's
there
the
are
dome.
only really two options. Get in your car and drive, even if that would take hours, or if the distance is simply too great, hop on a plane. Convincing people here to travel by rail instead is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
Damn trains. Never can rely on them, huh?
In some ways, you can't blame them.
Trains in America take you the absolute long butt fuck way around. It is not efficient travel. It's just better off to drive in America. It's better, like, economically to take a train, but in terms of travel time, the railway systems are so bad, it's literally better to just drive.
There's no denying the US is far behind the leaders of today when it comes to railways.
Now, if they put one of these bad boys, not Union Pacific. We don't need Union Pacific. Everybody's tired of seeing them.
200 years ago, and for more than a century afterwards, America had one of the most advanced and well-used networks in the world. But towards the middle of the 1900s, everything changed. Along came the jet age, allowing people to travel long distances across the country much faster.
Right.
It's just a matter of boarding the plane and enjoying the trip.
At the same time, Americans began their love affair with cars, and in the 1950s, the interstate highway system.
I will say this: driving is huge in America. The interstate is fantastic. Like, you can drive across the United States on Route 66 on one road for like this entire stretch throughout the middle here, but I'll let them keep going.
Once the 60s came around, car travel had increased almost fourfold since the mid-40s, and there were nearly 15 times as many plane journeys.
When the auto and the airplane sort of took off, a lot of the engineers that worked on railway shifted over, or they retired, and they were replaced by engineers who were studying aerospace, and so the talent pool also diminished.
And yet, even though
they got aerospace engineers that worked on these railway systems, and it still ended up like this.
In
That's crazy.
1965, after Japan launched the Shinkansen system, President Johnson planned an immediate response.
I will ask for funds to study high-speed rail transportation
He lied.
between urban centers. We will begin with test projects between Washington and Boston.
For over a decade, high-speed tests were carried out along the so-called Northeast Corridor, achieving speeds of over 150 miles an hour. By 1969, there was
So what happened to them?
speed.
So what happened to those trains? They just up and disappeared? That's great speed. I cruise at 150 miles an hour. I don't need to go faster than that. There's plenty of speed on a train.
Speeds of up to 120 miles an hour, not that much slower than the ones in Japan. But in the half-century that's passed since, the gap has widened. Others have entered the race and have catapulted ahead. Right now, these are the fastest trains in the US, Amtrak's Acela line, which runs along that same Northeast Corridor. They can go as fast as 150 miles an hour, but only for a short distance. Compare that to the high-speed lines in China, France and Spain, capable of around 200 miles an hour, and there really is no contest.
See, they can sustain those speeds, so that's the difference. He can point that out. They can sustain 200 miles an hour. That short burst ain't that great.
Okay, before we go any further, how fast does a train have to go before it can be considered high speed?
75.
Well, although there's no official definition, the International Union of Railways considers 155 miles an hour to be the minimum requirement.
Okay.
Sorry, Amtrak, your flagship service just misses out. But the US is trying to catch up. In December 2023, the Federal Railroad Administration announced over $8 billion in new funding.
$8 million in new funding. 8 million, billion. I'm sorry. $8 billion in new funding. That's how much money it is. I fucking crossed my wires there.
For passenger rail projects, including high-speed rail. One of these is California High-Speed Rail, underway between LA and San Francisco, which has had more than its fair share of troubles. 8 years after construction began, less than half of it has been built, and none of it anywhere near the two main cities. As for the costs, we're now looking at more than $100 billion.
It costs $128 billion to go between the two cities? That's a lot. Holy shit.
If someone knows you need their land and you've already sunk a bunch of money into your project and you've tendered a contract, you know, it's not incumbent upon the property owner to quickly satisfy your problem when they can hold out and get more money, especially when, you know, something like eminent domain is still a hot button issue in the US.
Then you've got Texas Central, still going through early studies, and Cascadia, which has only just secured federal funding for the planning phase. Neither is happening anytime soon. So, is it just a case now?
So what are we spending this $140 billion on if we don't have any high speed rails going across the country, man? What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Of waiting for the California scheme to finally drag itself over the finish line, whenever that may be. Well, not if this has anything to do with it. That's right.
You don't even have
and
inner-city
it's
transportation down
making
pat.
rapid progress. Now, before we get into the details, what does it take to be an engineer on something like a high-speed railway? Well, a strong track record of STEM subjects to begin with. But if these have a tendency to derail you, there's a new way to learn that's fun, easy, and free to start. Mechanical skills move of lessons 20% distance.
I'm sorry.
At a historic moment here in Florida.
Today, Brightline's first run from Miami to Orlando. It is ready to roll.
Called Brightline, it links Orlando and Miami with the fastest trains outside the Northeast Corridor, capable of 125 miles an hour. It might not be high speed, but building any kind
That's a
of
nice looking
railway in
train.
the US has become very difficult.
I'd ride that
So
train.
How was this done? Well, one key reason is it's the first private funded rail line in the country for
Oh,
over
that's
100
why it looks
years,
nice.
costing $6 billion. Instead of relying entirely on public funding, Brightline got backing from Wall Street to make these shiny new trains run. That includes work on more than 50 bridges, such as the one over the St. Lucie River, which is almost a century old. Challenging construction techniques were also required to build some of the new underpasses, like the box jacking method, which was used to position these 3,000-ton concrete sections under two roadways with the help of hydraulic jacks. And yet, most of the work involved upgrading what was already there.
That's honestly impressive. 300,000 tons? That's wild. I like that.
Much of it runs on tracks owned by the Florida East Coast Railway, which has the same parent company as Brightline. For the completely new section between Cocoa and Orlando, Brightline made use of a state policy that allocates right-of-way next to highways for new rail lines.
And they decided that, okay, when they were bought by a Wall Street firm, that they wanted to do passenger rail, and so they decided to use their right-of-way to do that. If you're a private operator and you think, okay, there's sort of an underused freight rail line that I can buy and convert to passenger, and it makes sense.
You can really just buy your way into, like, it's crazy how this is a private. You think this is like be a government thing? No, all this shit's private. Private sector. That's what America is. If you got the money, you can do it. Real villainous in a way.
That's
Real
good
villainous.
for you. That's smart.
Okay, but what about that new high-speed rail plan?
I'm
Well,
just
the
glad they
company has
built
now
a good
set
design,
sights
'cause
on a
these trains look
far more
great.
ambitious project right
That
on the
looks
opposite
fantastic.
side of the country. Called Brightline West, it's a new $12 billion high-speed railway between Las Vegas and Southern California, connecting all the way to Los Angeles. According to Brightline, it'll be America's first true high-speed railway, with top speeds of at least
186 miles an
186
hour.
miles an hour. That's quite a bold claim when construction hasn't even started yet. However, there are plans to begin very soon and to complete by mid-2028, in time for the Olympics. The 280
Oh, the Olympics
mile
gonna be held
or
in Los Angeles,
350
okay.
kilometer line will run from a station right on the Las Vegas Strip to Rancho Cucamonga, just over 40 miles east of LA. Passengers can then jump onto a Metrolink train and get to Union Station in around an hour. In total, a journey between the cities will take approximately 3 hours, down from about 5 hours by road. Driving also means having to travel on I-15, a highway
See,
notorious
this
for congestion.
is
And
actually
yet It
good.
does carve a nice straight line through the high deserts of San
That's
Bernardino
nice.
County.
No,
which
this is
why
actually good.
96%
Like, the reason this line's actually brilliant, because there's nothing out there, and traffic is heavy. Cutting down on that would alleviate so much. Like, the benefits for the people in the Las Vegas metropolitan area, just being able to hop on to Los Angeles, like 3 hours away, a day trip to Los Angeles. Come on, no traffic, one-way ticket, or you get a round trip ticket. Hop on a connector. That's not bad. I'd do it.
of the new train route will be aligned with I-15, much of it running between the two roadways. Again, Brightline
I would be a little wary of it traveling 186 miles an hour through the desert. Unless it was on magnets. If it was a maglev system, I wouldn't care. I don't want no rocks derailing the train. I know that wouldn't happen, but everybody's got their fears.
has been able to secure a critical right-of-way alongside existing infrastructure, this time signing a lease agreement with the California Department of Transportation.
You know, they're putting most of their right-of-way in the median of a highway. That minimizes some of the environmental impact. Obviously, the land acquisition issues become less hairy. So I think there are lessons to learn from Brightline.
Another similarity with the Florida project is that this won't be relying just on public funds. Private bonds and capital will cover most of the costs, with only $3.75 billion.
This is what I was
in
saying about
governments,
private sector.
most of which has now been
Did you
confirmed.
see how much the private sector outweighed the government?
$3.75 billion needed from the governments, most of which has now been confirmed.
That's crazy.
$3 billion coming our way to make Brightline a bright new reality for our tourist corridor.
That's all in stark contrast to California high-speed rail, which so far has relied entirely on government funding. Brightline West has already received a $25 million grant to help with design and construction. That was awarded back in June 2023, and the project has bipartisan support from officials in both states.
I mean, if that's what the inside of the train's
But
supposed to
it's
look
not all
like,
gonna be an
and that's
easy
what the
journey.
train station's
Aside
supposed to
from the
look
funding
like,
gap that still
who
needs to be
knows,
filled,
man?
There's one part of the route that's likely to be
If you build it, they will
especially
come.
challenging, the Cajon
People love
Pass.
opulence.
Situated between the
Now
San
that's what I'm
Bernardino
used to
and
seeing,
San Gabriel
just
mountain
free.
ranges,
Mhm.
the pass presents steep grades.
Good old
even for
American freight
trains.
industry.
High-speed
Yeah.
trains really have to travel on ground that's as flat as possible, so they need to slow down.
Nothing like some
through
good old
this
freight.
key section. Even so, Brightline West is looking like it could be a safe bet to complete before its troubled neighbour.
I think there's a high likelihood, based on the estimates on California high-speed rail, that they, Brightline West probably could get something built before California high-speed rail is connecting, certainly Los Angeles and San Francisco.
You can get it done before then? That's a big claim.
America's inability to build high-speed
That private
rail
sector go
is
crazy.
a long-running saga, and many have simply accepted it will never happen. But having achieved something down in Florida that took many by surprise, Brightline is convinced it can do the same on the other side of the country, this time going a big step further. Will it break down without leaving the station? Or is this American dream finally becoming a reality?
This is a good video.
This video was sponsored by Brilliant. You can
Thanks,
join
Brilliant.
them with a special offer at the link.
Shout out
below.
Brilliant. With that being said, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe. Stream every day on Twitch. That guy Malachi. Looking for that rocket power. That's me. Say what's up sometimes. I'm chill. All right. Peace out.